Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive.
Right.
You're ready to unlock some serious power.
I am. Let's do it.
Today, it is all about the subconscious mind. We're going to be hanging out with Joseph Murphy
Oh, yeah.
in his book, The Power of Your Subconscious Mind. We're tackling chapters 14 through 20.
Nice.
And let me tell you, this book,
It's jam-packed.
yeah, it is.
It's jam-packed with good stuff.
It's full of so many light bulb moments. I was reading and I was like, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
I need to change everything right now.
Absolutely. I think that's what's so cool about Murphy. He covers such a wide range of topics. I mean, we're talking relationships, we're talking happiness, we're talking about fears, and it all comes back to this
It
idea,
all connects.
yeah, that we can use our subconscious mind to create positive change in our
Excellent.
lives.
Yeah.
And I think that's what I love about this book is like he's giving us the tools
The
to
blueprint.
become the architects of our own lives.
Yes. I love that. The architect of your own life.
Yeah.
Which is an amazing concept. And, I'm all about building something amazing.
Yeah.
But to build something amazing, we got to understand the foundation first, right?
Yeah.
So what exactly is this mysterious subconscious mind that Murphy keeps talking about?
That is the question.
Right.
And it is a great question. I think the easiest way to think about it is like an iceberg, right? You have the conscious mind, and that's kind of the tip of the iceberg that you see.
Above the water.
Above the water,
Okay.
exactly. And that's where, you make your decisions and you analyze things and you're kind of holding your current thoughts.
Yeah.
But underneath the surface is this huge,
Didn't know you were
massive
fair.
amount of mental real estate, right, that we call the subconscious mind. And it's kind of the storehouse for all of our memories, our habits, and most importantly, our beliefs.
Right.
So it's all the stuff that's running in the background, and it's influencing our actions and our reactions without us even realizing it, which I think is...
Without us knowing. It's kind of freaky, right?
Yeah, a little bit.
It's like, who's running this show here?
Yeah.
But it's so powerful. So how does this hidden powerhouse
Mhm.
play a role in, let's say, our relationships?
Ooh.
Because Murphy, he comes out strong
He does.
in chapter 14 when he's talking about marriage. And he says, ignorance of the mind's power is at the root of all marital problems.
He makes a bold statement.
That's a bold statement.
But it's so true. And I think what's interesting, he's not saying, oh, if you just understand everything about your partner's subconscious mind, you'll have a great relationship.
Right.
What he's saying is that understanding your own subconscious
Yes.
is essential for a healthy relationship. Because let's face it, we all come into relationships.
We all got stuff.
Baggage.
Yes, baggage.
Yeah.
We got patterns
Oh, the
from
patterns.
the past.
Absolutely.
And if you're not aware of those
Right, well.
subconscious patterns, they can really sabotage your relationships without you even realizing it.
Oh, for sure.
So he tells this really cool story about a woman
Yeah.
who used the power of her subconscious
Yes.
to attract her ideal husband.
I love that story.
So did she just wish for it and poof, there he was.
I wish it was that easy.
Right.
Yeah, it would be great. But, her story is such a great example of how we can actually
Yeah.
consciously use our subconscious to create what
Yeah.
we want in our lives. So she didn't just, sit there and passively hope for a husband to show up. She
No.
actually shaped
Specific actions.
her subconscious mind. Exactly. And she used this technique where every single night she would imagine
Oh, okay.
her ideal partner. And she would picture all of his qualities. She would picture them
She got detailed.
super detailed. She's picturing their life together almost like she's watching a movie in her mind.
Oh, wow.
And that's what we call visualization.
Okay.
And it's such a powerful way to impress those desires onto our subconscious mind.
So it's not just oh, I want a husband. It's really getting in there and creating a scene.
Exactly.
The whole detailed picture.
A whole movie.
Yeah.
But she didn't just stop at visualization. She combined that with what we call affirmations, which are basically positive statements that reinforce the outcome that you want.
Got it.
So she would repeat phrases to herself like, I attract a loving, honest, and supportive husband.
Okay.
And so she's saying these things over and over again. And what that does is it starts to reprogram her subconscious mind.
So you're breaking down those old beliefs.
Yeah, you're replacing any limiting beliefs
Right.
that she might have had about finding love.
So you're basically planting those seeds in your subconscious garden.
Oh, I love that.
Right.
Yeah.
And you're watering them with these affirmations.
Exactly.
And you just, got to trust that they'll blossom into reality.
And that's what happened.
Right. And what's so cool is she wasn't even actively searching for a husband when she met him. It was just
She was living her life.
living her life.
Yeah.
And then boom,
Yeah.
he appears.
Yeah. She actually met him while she was working at a doctor's office,
Wow.
which I think just shows us that, it's not about trying to force things to happen.
Right.
It's about aligning our subconscious mind
Yes.
with our desires and then trusting the process,
Oh, we
letting
can-
it unfold naturally.
Letting it go. So I love that. I love that that works for attracting a partner. But can we use this like visualization and affirmation stuff in
Right.
other areas of our lives too?
Absolutely. In fact, in chapter 15, Murphy goes deep into the topic of happiness.
Ooh.
And he really emphasizes that true happiness isn't something you find, it's something you create.
Okay.
And guess what? Plays a major role in that.
I'm going to guess the subconscious mind.
Ding, ding, ding. You got it.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's not about waiting for that perfect job or
Right.
winning the lottery or finding, Mr. or Mrs. Right to make us happy.
Right.
It's about cultivating that sense of happiness
It's an inside job.
from within. Yes. He actually talks about how so many people chase these fleeting moments of happiness, like, the rush of getting something new or the thrill of a vacation.
Right. Right.
But those things fade so quickly,
They do it.
But lasting happiness, he says that comes from cultivating inner joy.
Okay.
And that's where the subconscious comes in.
Okay. I'm listening.
Yeah. So he actually quotes St. Paul in the book,
Okay.
who advises us to think about things that are true, honest, just pure, lovely, and of good report. So essentially what he's saying is focus on the positive.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah,
Because if we're constantly dwelling on the negative or worries, fears,
exactly.
that's going to shape our reality.
Absolutely.
And it's going to keep us stuck in that cycle of unhappiness.
Yeah,
It's like we're looking at the world through these gray tinted glasses.
that's a great way to put it.
Right. But if we make that conscious choice to focus on the good, the positive, all the beauty that's around us,
Yes,
it changes our whole perception.
it does.
And then that creates that more joyful experience.
Exactly. And it's like we can retrain our minds
Yeah.
to look for the good in everything,
Yeah.
even in the challenges. And it made me think about that story that he told about the Irish farmer.
Oh, yeah.
Do you remember him? Where he made happiness a habit.
Yes.
Like he would, every morning and every evening, he would bless his family, his crops, his animals, everything.
Everything. And he was like expressing gratitude
So much gratitude.
for everything that he had.
Exactly.
And it wasn't about his circumstances.
No,
It was about that mindset
it was his mindset.
that he had.
Yeah.
And I think that's so powerful
Yeah.
because it shows that, happiness,
Yeah.
it's not something that's just, out there.
It's not external.
Right.
Yeah.
It's something that we cultivate from within.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And, that's something I think that is really key
Yeah.
for a member. It's like taking those affirmations, taking those visualizations
Yeah.
beyond just, wanting to manifest a partner
Yeah.
and applying it to how do I want to feel in my life.
Yeah.
So you can literally visualize yourself
Okay.
feeling joyful and content and peaceful.
Okay. So we've talked relationships, happiness, but
Right.
let's be real. Something we all struggle with
Yeah.
is dealing with those, difficult people.
Oh, the difficult people.
Right. Like that grumpy coworker, that
Yeah.
critical family member, that friend that just like always brings you down.
Always.
What does Murphy say
Yeah.
about navigating those tricky relationships?
Oh, that's a good one.
Right.
Yeah. So in chapter 16, he really tackles this head on,
Okay.
and it all comes back to,
I bet it does, the subconscious.
yes, the power of that subconscious mind.
Okay, so how does like my subconscious play a role in how I deal with, let's say, a really critical boss
Mm-hmm.
or like a gossipy neighbor?
Ooh, those gossipy neighbors.
Right.
Yeah, they can be tricky.
They can be tough.
What Murphy suggests is that our thoughts about others actually shape our experiences with them.
Okay. Interesting.
So remember that iceberg analogy.
Yeah.
The subconscious it's running the show behind the scenes,
Okay.
right? So if you're constantly thinking negative thoughts about someone,
Okay.
guess what?
It's going to come out.
It's going to influence how you interact with them.
Oh, so if I'm thinking like, ugh, here comes Debbie Downer again.
Yeah.
She's just going to like complain about everything.
Exactly.
I'm basically like setting myself up for a negative encounter with her.
It's almost like you're putting out these negative vibes
Right.
and they're boomeranging right back to you.
It's true.
Yeah.
It's true.
And he actually talks about the golden rule, but he kind of takes it a step further.
Okay.
He says it's not just about our outward actions, it's also our inward thoughts
Oh.
and feelings towards people as well. So it's not just do unto others as you would have them do unto you,
Okay.
but think about others as you want them to think about you.
Okay.
Feel about them as you want them to feel about you.
Ooh.
Act towards them
Okay.
as you would want them to act towards you.
Okay, that makes sense.
Right.
But honestly, sometimes it's really hard to think positive thoughts about some people.
Right.
Like, what if someone has genuinely wronged you
Yeah.
or they're constantly putting you down?
Yeah.
How can you possibly think good thoughts about them?
It's a challenge. It is. And Murphy acknowledges that.
Okay.
He's not saying this is going to be easy.
Right.
But he really emphasizes the importance of trying to avoid that judgment.
Right.
Because he says when we judge others, we're actually creating a kind of mental poison within ourselves.
Oh. Okay.
It's like we're drinking that haterade. And it's just not good for us.
No, it's not.
It's not good for our mental, our emotional well-being.
It's true.
So, I always think about it like,
Yeah.
holding on to that anger, holding on to that resentment,
Yeah.
it's like carrying around a heavy weight.
It's exhausting.
It is. It's so exhausting.
And how do you just stop judging?
Right.
It's so automatic sometimes.
It can be. And that's where really understanding the power of the subconscious comes in.
Mhm.
Because instead of trying to suppress those judgmental thoughts, try shifting your focus.
Okay.
And he actually tells the story of this man
Oh.
who was so consumed by anger
Okay.
towards these newspaper columnists.
Okay.
He was so angry
Really?
about the things that they were writing
Okay.
that he developed ulcers.
From reading the newspaper.
I know. Isn't that wild?
That's a lot.
Yeah.
Wow.
But it just highlights how powerful our thoughts can be.
Okay.
Right. So this man was so caught up in disagreeing and judging these writers that it actually manifested physically in his body.
Oh, wow.
So he had to learn to disagree without being disagreeable.
Okay.
Like he could read an opinion that he didn't like
Yeah.
and not let it consume him with anger.
Okay.
And so I think that's a really important lesson for us in terms of we don't have to agree with everyone.
Right.
We don't have to condone bad behavior.
Right.
But we also don't have to let those negative thoughts
Yeah.
control us.
It's detaching
I
from that emotional roller coaster.
Yes.
Right.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And he also shares the story of this secretary who hated women.
Oh, wow. That's a tough one.
Can you imagine going through life feeling that way?
Oof.
About half the population?
Yeah. I'm guessing that didn't lead to a lot of harmonious
No,
workplace relationships.
it's not so much. But through prayer
Okay.
and a conscious effort to change her inner dialogue,
Okay.
she was able to transform that hatred into acceptance.
Wow, that's huge.
It is. And she started to focus on the positive qualities
Right.
of the women that she worked with, and her relationships improved dramatically.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
It just shows
Yeah.
the power of changing our thoughts
Yeah.
can really change our reality.
It really can.
It's,
Yeah.
It's like we have this internal remote control.
Right.
And we can choose which channel we want to tune into,
Exactly.
like the negativity channel or the positivity channel.
I love that analogy.
Right. And it reminds me of another story that he shares about the salesman who was constantly butting heads
Yeah.
with his sales manager.
Oh, yes.
And he had all these negative thoughts
Mm-hmm.
about his boss. He was always criticizing him in his mind.
Yeah.
And guess what? Their relationship was
terrible.
Yeah, it was awful.
And he was stuck in that vicious cycle.
Yeah.
The more negative thoughts he had, the worse it got.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
But here's the interesting part is he realized
Okay.
that his inner critic.
Was actually being mirrored back to him
Oh, interesting.
in his interactions with his boss.
Wow.
So he decided to try something different.
Okay.
He started changing his mental picture of his boss.
Okay.
Started focusing on the positive qualities,
Wow.
even if they were small.
That's powerful.
Right. So he was looking for the good,
Yeah.
even though it's probably buried under a lot of
Frustration.
frustration and resentment.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And the results were incredible
They were.
because as his thoughts about his boss shifted, so did their interactions.
Wow.
And their relationship improved significantly.
I love that.
And the salesman's job became much more enjoyable.
It just shows you the power
Yeah.
of our thought.
Our thoughts create our reality.
Yes.
Right. But what about when we need to let go of negativity that's directed towards ourselves?
Ooh, that's a good one.
Right.
Yeah.
Because I know I could be my own worst critic.
Oh, yeah, me too.
What does Murphy say about, like, dealing with guilt
Yeah.
and self-judgment?
That's a great segue because in chapter 17, he talks about the importance of forgiveness.
Okay.
And he's not just talking about forgiving others, he's
Right.
also talking about forgiving ourselves,
That's huge.
which I think is really important.
Yeah.
And he emphasizes that forgiveness isn't about condoning actions.
Okay.
It's about releasing those negative emotions
Right.
that are harming us.
Okay. So it's about, like, letting go of that burden
Let it go.
of guilt or resentment or anger,
Yeah.
whether it's towards yourself
Yes.
or somebody else.
Exactly.
Because holding on to those feelings, it's not doing us any favors.
It's not serving you.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
Like, we're chained to the past,
Right.
and it prevents us from, like, moving forward freely.
Absolutely. And he tells a story of this man who was consumed by guilt
Okay.
over past mistakes. And he was working himself to death. He was neglecting his family. He was suffering from high blood pressure.
It sounds like he was trapped in
Yeah.
a cycle of self-punishment.
He was.
Wow.
Yeah, and then he had this realization. He learned to forgive himself,
Okay.
to acknowledge his mistakes without letting them define him. And guess what?
What happened?
His blood pressure normalized.
Wow.
His relationships with his family improved.
Yeah.
He was able to experience joy and peace again.
Wow, that's amazing.
It is.
Forgiveness really is a powerful force.
It is.
It's like hitting the reset button on our emotional well-being.
Yes. It's so true. And it's not just physical health.
Right.
He believes forgiveness is essential for mental
Yeah.
and even spiritual well-being. He even shares a story of a murderer who found peace through understanding and forgiveness.
Wow. That's a pretty extreme example.
It is.
But I guess it shows that, no matter what we've done
Right.
or what's been done to us,
Yeah.
forgiveness is always possible.
It is.
And it's always beneficial.
Always. It's about releasing those chains of the past and embracing the freedom of the present moment.
Okay, so we've talked about the power of the subconscious in relationships,
Mhm.
happiness, forgiveness.
Mm-hmm.
But what about when it comes to achieving our goals and dreams?
Oh, good one.
Because sometimes it feels like there's this invisible wall
Yeah.
that's holding us back.
Yes.
Whether it's, fear, self-doubt, limiting beliefs.
Yeah.
What does Murphy say about breaking through
Right.
those mental blocks?
Ooh, I love this.
Right.
Yeah, because those mental blocks can be so sneaky,
They really can.
It's like they're these invisible walls that we keep running into
Yeah.
that prevent us from reaching our full potential.
Yeah.
And you're right, fear and self-doubt,
That's the worst.
they are often the culprits. But the good news is,
Okay.
just like we can reprogram our subconscious mind
Right.
for happiness and positive relationships, we can also reprogram it to overcome these mental barriers. And that's what chapter 18 is all about.
Okay. I like it. So it's not about, like, trying harder
No.
or just, like, pushing through the fear.
No.
It's about addressing those underlying beliefs
Yes.
that are, like, creating the block in the first place.
The root cause.
Right. But how do you even begin to identify
Right.
those subconscious beliefs?
Yeah.
They're hidden.
They are. They often operate below our conscious awareness.
Right.
But Murphy gives some really practical advice. He says the solution lies within the problem.
Mm.
So in other words, if you're facing a block, the key to overcoming it is to actually examine the problem itself.
Okay.
So what are the thoughts,
Yeah.
the beliefs, the fears
Okay.
that are creating this obstacle?
Okay. So let's say, I've always wanted to start my own business,
Okay. Yeah.
but I keep putting it off. I'm afraid of failing.
Right.
I'm afraid of what people will think. I'm
Mhm.
afraid of the financial risk.
Uh-huh.
So all those fears are like a giant stop sign in my mind.
Those are your blocks.
Right.
Yeah. And so instead of trying to ignore them or power through them,
Right.
Murphy suggests, really taking a closer look at them.
Okay.
Like, where did those fears come from? Are they based on past experiences, limiting beliefs that you've picked up along the way?
That's a good question.
Mm.
I guess, yeah, maybe I've always been a bit of a perfectionist, afraid of making mistakes.
Okay.
And maybe I've heard too many stories about businesses failing.
Yeah.
So I've kind of like internalized that.
Internalize that fear.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Right.
So you've identified some potential root causes there.
Okay.
Now you can start to challenge those beliefs. Are all businesses destined to fail? Are mistakes really the end of the world?
That's true.
Can you find examples of people who overcame similar fears and achieved success?
Yeah, that's a good point. I'm sure there are plenty of successful entrepreneurs
Oh, yeah.
who made mistakes along the way.
Absolutely. And Murphy emphasizes the power
I bet he
of
does.
visualization
Yeah.
and affirmations here as well. And he actually shares the story of this man who broke his addiction to alcohol.
Okay.
And he had tried everything to quit, but he just kept relapsing.
Right.
And then he discovered the power of his subconscious mind.
Okay.
And so he would visualize every day
Okay.
himself as sober,
Okay.
healthy, enjoying this happy life with his daughter.
Oh, wait.
And he would repeat these affirmations like, I am free from alcohol. I am strong and healthy. I am in control of my life.
Wow. So he was like using that to overcome his addiction.
He did. And over time, those positive images and beliefs, they sunk into his subconscious mind, and he was able to break free.
It's amazing how much power we have to like rewire our brains
Yeah.
for positive change.
Total. It's like we're literally rewriting the script of our lives.
It's wild. He also tells that story about this salesman who was like stuck in a rut.
Yes.
Like he had a mental block around success.
He did. Yeah, the salesman was just caught in this cycle of fear and rejection.
Right.
He was so afraid of being rejected that he was actually sabotaging his own success. Every time he would approach a potential customer, his subconscious would whisper, they're going to say no.
Yeah.
You're going to fail.
Oof, I can relate to that. That inner critic can be so loud.
It's like it's trying to protect us, but it's actually holding us back.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the salesman, he realized he had to change his internal dialogue.
Okay.
So instead of focusing on the fear of rejection, he started focusing on the expectancy of success.
Okay.
So he would visualize himself closing deals,
Got it.
building relationships with customers, and reaching his sales goals.
So he basically flipped the script
He did.
in his mind.
He replaced the negative self-talk with positive affirmations and visualization.
And it worked.
And it worked. His confidence grew, his sales numbers increased, and he was finally able to break through that mental block.
It's awesome. I love that. It
Yeah.
shows like we really do have that power to create the reality that we want. But let's talk about something that can be a major obstacle for a lot of people.
Okay.
And that is fear.
Ugh, yes. Fear.
It can be so paralyzing.
It is.
It can prevent us from taking risks, pursuing our dreams,
Right.
living life to the fullest. What does Murphy say about, conquering our fears?
He tackles this head on in chapter 19,
Okay.
and he offers some really valuable insights.
Okay, so how do we go from being like controlled by fear
Right.
to being in control of our fears?
That is the question.
Right.
So, first, I think it's important to distinguish between what he calls normal fear and abnormal fear.
Okay.
So normal fear is like that instinctual response that keeps us safe.
Okay.
Like if you see a snake and you jump back
Okay.
or you slam on the brakes to avoid an accident, it's our body's natural alarm system.
So normal fear is a good thing.
Yeah.
It's there to protect us.
Exactly. It's essential for survival. But abnormal fear, that's different.
Okay.
It's those irrational anxiety that hold us back
I-
and prevent us from living fully. Like being so afraid of flying that you never travel,
Right.
or being so afraid of public speaking that you avoid any opportunity to share your ideas.
Okay, so abnormal fear is like that inner voice.
Yes.
It's constantly whispering, be careful, don't take risks, something bad might happen.
And it can get so loud and so persistent
Yeah.
that it becomes paralyzing. But the good news is
Okay.
we can train our minds
Okay.
to overcome those irrational fears. And, he shares a really cool story about this young lady
Okay.
who suffered from really debilitating stage fright.
Oh.
She had this
Yeah.
beautiful voice and she had a passion for singing, but her fear was so intense
Yeah.
that she could barely perform
Oh, God.
in front of an audience.
Stage fright is like so common. I used to get butterflies in my stomach
Oh, yeah.
just thinking about giving a presentation in class.
Yeah.
So
It's a common experience.
it is.
But this young lady, she was determined to overcome her fear. So she started using affirmations. Every day she would repeat to herself, I sing beautifully, I am poised, serene, confident, and calm.
It sounds so simple. Do you think it really works?
Mm-hmm.
Just like repeating positive statements to yourself.
It might sound too good to be true, but according to Murphy,
Yeah.
the key is consistency and belief.
Okay.
So you have to really believe what you're saying
Okay.
and repeat those affirmations with conviction.
Okay.
And so this young lady, she practiced diligently.
Okay.
And eventually those affirmations, they sunk into her subconscious mind.
So she was basically like reprogramming her mind,
She was.
replacing those fearful thoughts with those empowering beliefs.
Exactly. And guess what?
What happened?
Her stage fright gradually diminished,
Nah.
and she was able to perform with confidence and joy.
I love that story. It gives me like so much hope
Yeah,
that even our deep-seated fears can be overcome.
absolutely.
He also mentions a technique for overcoming fear called blessing the elevator. Right?
Yes. Blessing the elevator.
That one was fascinating to me.
I know. So we had this man who was terrified of riding in elevators.
Okay.
And so he would stand in front of the elevator doors
Okay.
and repeatedly bless the elevator,
Okay.
affirming its safety and divine order.
So he was using like the power of words
Yes.
to like shift his mindset.
He was, from
Okay.
fear to faith.
Okay. I'm starting to see a pattern here.
Right.
Whether it's attracting a partner, finding happiness,
Yeah.
improving our relationships, overcoming mental blocks, conquering our fears,
Yeah,
it all comes back to the power of our thoughts
it does.
and
It
beliefs.
really does.
We can literally reprogram our subconscious minds
Yes.
to create the reality that we desire.
That's the core message of this book.
It's amazing.
And it's so empowering
It is.
because it means we're not victims of circumstance, you know?
Huh.
We actually have this incredible ability
We have the power.
to shape our experience, to create a life that is filled with joy and love and fulfillment.
So if our thoughts and beliefs have such a powerful impact on our lives,
Yeah.
what about our beliefs about aging?
Ooh, good one.
Right, because we live in a society that's obsessed with youth.
Yes.
We're constantly bombarded with messages that tell us you need to look a certain way, you need to feel a certain way.
Yeah.
As we get older,
Yeah.
what does Murphy say about, staying young in spirit?
Oh, I love that he actually addresses this in chapter 20.
Okay.
And he challenges those societal norms and offers this really refreshing perspective on aging. He believes our subconscious minds never grow old.
Okay.
They're timeless, ageless,
Wow.
full of infinite potential.
So it's our thoughts and beliefs about aging
Yeah.
that actually age us.
He believes that fear of time, not time itself, is what ages us. And we've all heard that saying, you're only as old as you feel.
Right.
And he really seems to agree with that. He says it's our attitude, our outlook on life
Yeah.
that determines how we experience aging.
And he tells that amazing story about the 84-year-old surgeon
Yes.
who was still going strong.
I love that story.
Like he hadn't bought into that whole
Nope.
slow down and retire
Not at all.
mentality.
No, he had this vibrant energy and a passion for his work
Yeah.
that kept him feeling young and alive. And he didn't succumb to those societal expectations of what it means to be old. He was living proof that age is just a number.
He really was.
Yeah.
And then there's that inspiring story about the 110-year-old man in Bombay
Yes.
who just radiated this like inner peace and light. It's like he had unlocked the secret to
Yeah.
agelessness.
Yeah, and Murphy suggests that we can all tap into that ageless part of ourselves.
Okay.
And he encourages us to view retirement not as an end, but as a new beginning.
Okay, I like that.
Right. It's a time to pursue our passions, to contribute our wisdom to the world, to embrace new adventures.
It's like that saying, retirement's not the end of the road, it's just a turn in the road.
That's perfect.
Right.
Yeah.
When we get to choose which direction we want to go.
Exactly. And Murphy reminds us it's never too late
Yeah.
to start something new, to learn a new skill, to pursue a dream.
Our subconscious minds are always ready.
Always, no matter our age.
This has been such an incredible deep dive.
It has.
It's so empowering to know that we have so much more control
Yes.
over our experiences
Yes.
than we often realize.
We do.
We can literally shape our reality
Yes.
with our thoughts and our beliefs.
It's truly fascinating how much power resides within each of us.
It is. So before we wrap up, I have to ask,
Mhm.
what was the most surprising
Mm.
or impactful thing that you learned from Muffy's book?
For me, what really stood out was the simplicity of it all. It's not about these complex rituals or esoteric practices.
Right.
It's really about understanding the basic principles
Right.
of the subconscious mind and applying them consistently in our daily lives.
Yeah.
So it's about choosing our thoughts carefully,
Okay.
focusing on the positive, believing in our own power to create change.
I love that. It's about taking those small,
Yeah.
consistent steps each day
Yes.
that lead to those big transformations over time.
Absolutely. It's like planting those seeds in our subconscious garden,
Yes.
nurturing them with positive affirmations and visualizations,
Yeah.
and watching them blossom
Yeah.
into the reality that we desire.
Oh, beautiful.
It is.
Beautiful analogy. And it makes me think of that gardening tip. Don't judge each day by the harvest you reap, but by the seeds that you plant.
I love that. And that's such a perfect way to wrap up our deep dive today.
It is.
Because ultimately,
Yeah.
it's about recognizing that we have that power
Yeah.
to choose the seeds that we plant
Yes.
in our subconscious minds. We can choose seeds of fear and doubt, or we can choose seeds of love, joy, abundance. The choice is ours.
So powerful. Such a great reminder. All right. Well, that's all the time we have for today's deep dive. As always, thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next time.